This is our second guest speaker session for the theatre. The first group was Generation, very interesting generation of First Nations people from the Aboriginal. And now we're blessed to have Willie Tonga with us. Willie has a reputable rugby league career, but he's also moved on from his rugby league background into bigger and better things to help inspire and work with children and young people. So Willie, thank you. Thank you for joining us here today.
You're welcome, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm going to hand it over to my co-host to do the questions, but forgive me if I interject.
Of course you can, that's
because
okay.
I just love the conversation.
Yeah.
So this is just an armchair conversation with Willie Tonga about his work, both in the rugby league space, but also in the work post rugby league. So I'll leave that for Willie to talk about. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Shane, and welcome, Willie. Thanks for being here at our Logan NAIDOC. For those that are here, my name is Paula Jewis. I'm a Wutiti woman from far north Queensland. On my Torres Strait Islander side, on my father's side, I'm from Boygill Island, born on Wyvern on Thursday Island, long time ago. So it's nice to be here and conduct this with Shane. I think it's a great opportunity that we see some of our young emerging leaders in our community and knowing what they've gone through and listen to their stories and share it in such a really good atmosphere. So for any other things, what we might do is that we'll go through, hear Willie's story, have some questions, and then I think probably around about 10 minutes before we close and just seek any questions from the floor if that's okay with everyone. Willie, over to you. Just to tell everyone, just a bit about who you are, your story, your experiences, some of your values that you have true to your beliefs, and also in regards to what do you perceive to be the future or the next generation for how, because we've had 50 years of NAIDOC, so how you might see yourself contributing to the next 50 years. I'm not saying that, but yes, I'm sure you will, but in regards to our community as well.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and to be invited to have a yarn and speak about my journey and I guess where I've been and where I am now. I'm a proud descendant of the Wiradjuri people, so I was born in Canberra. I grew up in Peak Hill, which is a little country town down in New South Wales, just outside of Dubbo. My mother's Aboriginal, my dad's Tongan, and we lived there till I was about 10 years old, and then we ended up moving to Cootamundra. That's where Mum and Dad went to Bible college. The first 2 years of Bible college was the theory side of it, and the third year was the prac side of it. So after Cootamundra, we then moved to La Perouse. And from La Perouse, after Dad was a qualified pastor, we got asked, out of all places in Australia, we got asked to move to Cherbourg. And that's where, that's the connection with myself and Cherbourg. Cherbourg's, for those who don't know, it's an Indigenous community about 3 hours north of Brisbane. It's a community that's very dear to my heart, and I don't think that I would be in this position if it wasn't for the people of Cherbourg and the support that I got growing up as well. Yeah, that's a start.
You got to allow me to get in there.
Oh, okay, sorry, Shane.
Very quickly. Now, well, you're the one that triggered it. I just need to say that we talked about NAIDOC.
Yep.
And this year we're celebrating 10 years, 50 years of NAIDOC. I just want to clarify for the audience what that means. And that is, NAIDOC's been around for 80 years plus. But in the last 50 years, we introduced the week of NAIDOC. And that's what we're celebrating, the week of NAIDOC. Because prior to that, it was a 1 day of observance. And even prior to that, it was the political agenda. So we had our elders in the very past who came forward in Sydney, New South Wales, who said rather than protest it as a day of mourning or something sad for First Nations people, let's celebrate our history. Let's celebrate our culture. And so back in 1972, they started to introduce themes, and as you can see, we've had a theme practically every year, and we have artwork that goes with it. But in 1975, they introduced the week of NAIDOC. So prior to 1975, it was NAIDOC, National Aborigines Day Observance Committee. And then in 1975, it changed to NAIDOC and included Torres Strait Islander people as well. So I just had to throw that out there because Paula did raise it. And I just wanted to clarify why we're celebrating in 2025, 50 years of NAIDOC, we're celebrating the week. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. So, Willie, you know, you've had don't mind the punters, but you've got a long rap sheet in regards to your football career, being a professional football player, both representing Australia internationally, but also State of Origin, which is on tomorrow. I might ask you for who might win tomorrow. But anyway, it's in relation to how we see that next generation. So in the context of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and communities, what do you think is that meaning of that phrase, the next generation?
Well, that's a good question, and I think if I'm talking about my rugby league career and how it started, I'll go back to when I was living in Peak Hill, and I'd never played rugby league before, and at the time Dad had us boxing. There was no junior rugby league in Peak Hill at the time, just only seniors. But I remember watching a game, and it was the Broncos versus St George grand final, and there was this player that scored this 100-metre length of the field try. And before that, you know, being in the boxing, I wanted to be Mike Tyson. Like in my head, I thought to myself, I'm going to be Mike Tyson. But when I saw that player score that 100-metre try, I said to myself at 9 years old, I'm going to be like you one day. And that was Steve Renouf.
Yeah, I saw that race. Yeah,
and I think that resonated with me because I thought, he looks like me. He's Aboriginal, my mother's Aboriginal, my dad's Tongan. And I didn't know much about rugby league, but I didn't even know how to pass a ball, to be honest, but I had in my mind that I was going to be like Steve Renouf. And I think being able to see, role models on TV and aspire to be like them, I've got no doubt that the players that are playing now looked up to the likes of Jonathan Thurston, the likes of Greg Inglis, Justin Hodges, Semi Thaiday. Just seeing them on TV, it gives these young people hope. And not necessarily just in the sporting world as well. When I do go into schools or I go into detention centres, I let these young kids know that it might sound cliche and it might sound a little bit corny, but if you do put your mind to it, you can be anything that you want to be.
That's true.
And I feel I'm living proof of that. If I told somebody while I was living in Peak Hill that I was going to play in the NRL, play for Queensland, play for Australia, even though Peak Hill's in New South Wales, they probably would have laughed at me. And even though when I did move to Cherbourg, that was still the goal. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go for these 6K runs, and people thought I was crazy, but they didn't see my vision. And I think that's one of the words in our themes this year. I had a vision. Steve Renouf was somebody that I saw, and I thought, I'm going to be like you one day. I don't know how, but through hard work and dedication and putting everything into it, I was able to achieve what I set out to.
And through that, in your viewing of different different role models, because in Australia we've had a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander role models that have been quite significant for our communities, especially for our young people growing up and having that aspiration to even move into the sports industry, but also across the arts and in different other sector industries as well. Now, in saying that, through the next generation and having that vision, there's also comes strength with that. So through your careers, you've also experienced a lot of challenges. I remember when I did see you play in your first injury, I felt for you there, brother, on TV, and you know, it must have been really painful, but through that, you know, can you talk about how, with those different challenges, what was your underlying strength in regards to, not for your physical strength, but also your spiritual and emotional and mental strength as well?
Yeah, I think it was 20 years this year since I had my first injury, and it was 2 weeks before Origin selection. So in my mind, 21 years old, I thought I'm going to walk straight into the Origin side and I'm going to be the centre, and you know, you other boys can fight it out for the other centre spot. And now that I look back at it, that was my pride and my ego that started to set in, because no one's guaranteed an Origin spot. So to think that I was going to walk straight in was very egotistical, and I think it was foolish. And I think God had His way of humbling me, and in one tackle I snapped my medial ligament, which is in my knee, and I was out for the rest of the year. And so people tell you about, you know, playing State of Origin, playing for Australia, and how good it is, but no one tells you about the tough times as well, and which I experienced. And there was 4 years of season-ending injuries, and I fell into a really low place. I was, if I'm being honest, I fell into depression. Back then I didn't know it was depression, because I didn't believe in it. It's not something that was thrown around or something that I heard growing up, especially in Cherbourg. But I was going through it, and I didn't tell anybody. I'd cry myself to sleep, you know, nights in a row. And it's it's a little bit tough because I've got my sister and my auntie and my cousin here, and they're probably hearing this for the first time. But as a man, a proud Aboriginal and Tongan man, you don't feel that, like, the facade that I put on, I had to be the man. So as soon as I stepped outside that door, I put this mask on. All right, I'm Willie Tonga, the man. But behind closed doors, I was a mess. And so, yeah, I've experienced the highest of highs and lowest of lows, but not many people will know about the lows, and no one prepares you for that.
No, that's true.
And I think the way with my family and my foundation, growing up in a Christian home, and taught Christian morals and values, I think having God at the centre of everything, that was able to pull me through those dark days.
And I think through that, like we talk about legacy, it's those family members and those support during those dark times that can really bring us through what could be challenging us. And you know, if we being honest and truth telling, you know, in my family, my brother suffered depression a lot with mental health, but it wasn't until we could support each other. And you know, in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, when we start to feel that we're starting to become quite dark or having those thoughts and that, the way that I know, this is just me personally, is that I always like to go back home. And when I go back home, I know that that's how I'm going to heal, spiritually, emotionally, physically and mentally, to help me. And with my ancestors, you know, Aboriginal and Torres Strait people, we not only do we acknowledge the living in regards to how we connect with people to help us go through the hard times. But it's also those that have passed on. And every time I go back up, because home, everyone, is Cairns. Far North Queensland was a lot more warmer than down here. I always go to see my grandmother and all my aunties and uncles and other ancestors that have passed on, and spend a bit of time with them, yarn with them, and cry with them, and that becomes a healing part. And these days we know that mental health is a big issue for not only our community but everyone else as well. And I think that kind of moves into some of the things that we need to rebuild and connect. And I think through strength, vision and legacy, which is the theme of NAIDOC, we can always make sure that we can move forward, for the next 50 years, but also to support the next generation. And I know that you've, in the last 6 months, created your foundation. So can you tell us a bit about how that came about?
Yeah, so for the last 6 years I've been a full-time ambassador for Deadly Choices. For those who don't know anything about Deadly Choices, it's an Indigenous preventative health program. So as an ambassador, I travel all over Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, into community and promote healthy living, healthy lifestyle, and just trying to break that cycle. And even just letting kids know, that harmful substances aren't the way to go. Deadly Choices is, I think everyone in Queensland knows, the word deadly. It's in the same term as like something good, something positive. And so going into these communities has been a real eye-opener for me. And something that I've noticed within those last 6 years is when I do go into community, there's been a lack of strong men role models that I've seen. We've got our leaders, our women that are leading our communities, which isn't a bad thing. But then I've been thinking over the last couple of years, like, where are our men? And when I do go to the prisons, whether it's Maryborough or Wakehall, Woodford, I see these men in there, and the Aboriginal men, and they're from Sherbrooke. And it frustrates me a little bit because I feel that they should be in community, leading the next generation. We've got our women that are doing a great job in leading our next generation, but where are our men? And so over the last 6 months, I thought I'd start my own foundation in trying to get into community and empower our men, empower our youth, go into detention centres, and tell these young fellas that, when you do get out, you don't have to follow, the crowd. You don't have to, just because mum and dad went to jail doesn't mean that that's your life. Because a lot of kids think that it's normal. And when I tell these kids that being locked up like this, like a caged animal, it's not normal. And they'll look at me, and I'll see them, they'll look at me with this sort of strange look. Like, what do you mean it's not normal? And then I'll explain to them that, there's a big world out there to explore, and I'll go back to it. If you put your mind to it, you can be anything. And I'll give an example. I was in St Mary's last year down in Sydney at Cobham, which is the detention centre, and we had a yarn circle, and there was this young fella. We're in a circle. I told my journey, and I asked the boys to introduce themselves and tell us where they're from. And there was this young fella who was next, and he didn't want to say his name or where he was from, and which was cool. Skip, and everybody went around. And so we had a break, and we went out in the field and started throwing a footy around. And he came up to me and he said, "How did you know that you were going to be somebody when you were 9 years old?" And I said, "That's a good question." I just said, I knew that I didn't want to be like everybody else. I knew that I wanted to be the best at whatever that was, and I wanted to make a change. and I could see him looking up into the sky with a smile on his face, and he said, when I get out of here, I'm going to be somebody. And I think that was the first time that someone told him that he could be anything he wanted to be if he put his mind to it. And I think a lot of kids don't have that with their upbringing or whether it's at home. So it's about, you know, giving these young kids hope as well, you know, talking positivity into their lives and letting them know that there's other ways, you know, whether it's, you know, sporting or through the arts or academically or whatever it may be. Yeah, and so when I saw that smile on the kid's face, I thought, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do. That was all worth it. And I've got other stories when I do go into community and I talk to men, and they're older men as well. You know, 2 weeks ago I was in Airlie, and this man, he was he'd been an alcoholic, and he was 3 days sober before the workshop. And the last time he went off alcohol was back in 1992. So he drank alcohol every day since 1992. And I asked him, I said, what's the goal? And he said, I want to do a month. I said, I believe in you. And so I checked up on him day 11, and he said, and he couldn't believe that I rang him. When I said, how you going? And he said, oh, I'm day 11. I rang him a couple of days ago, it was day 27. And he said he's going to make a month and 2 months. So just little stories like that make it all worth it. And so I'm sort of rambling on a bit, but that's I guess, my foundation, the foundation that I started is to be able to empower men, whether it's older men, whether it's younger, the younger generation, to be leaders within our communities.
Yeah. And through that, and you know, I appreciate your stories that you share, and it's very empowering to hear how you going into those different environments and then being an example to those young men out there. And we do need really good examples, because sometimes role models and having our young people wanting to feel belonged in a space can be quite difficult if they haven't had that right support to support them as well. And you know, we need to make sure that our young people are supported. So will you, through your foundation, will you be running any mentoring program to work with young people when you go out to the communities?
Yeah, eventually. It's only at the beginning stages, but I'm so blessed that, you know, to be in this position, and it's really taken off. And to be honest, I'm struggling to keep up with you know, people reaching out and wanting me to go and talk about my journey and talk to young kids, and I give all glory to God because of that. Had He not given me this opportunity, then I don't think I could do it on my own. I truly feel that the 16 years that I played at the elite level, NRL, was just the foundation for me to be where I'm at right now. I don't even care about my rugby league past. I mean, it was cool to represent Australia and cool to represent Queensland, but at the end of the day, it's just a game. But if I can impact somebody now and moving forward and change their way of thinking and change their mentality on the way they look at life, then I feel that I'm doing my job.
Shane, you have a question?
Willie, let's just reflect on all your answers today and the fact that we're looking at the theme, the next generation, strength, vision and legacy. And if I can hone in on the word legacy, and I think you've been sort of drip feeding us with bits of information around that. But legacy isn't something that you leave with someone. Legacy is what you leave within people, how they feel about you. Willie, what's your legacy?
That's a good question.
I got asked to, there were 16 questions, and that was one of the questions that I didn't want to answer. No, but only for the fact that I think legacy is subjective. I think I can't sit here and say I want my legacy to be this or to be that. Like when I'm gone, people are going to remember me how I acted or the way I treated them. Yeah, I know. I say this in the most polite way. I think if you focus on legacy, and I've seen people do this, I want my legacy to be this, to be that. I think that's pride and that's ego. So if I strip that back a bit, and if I'm able to impact somebody moving forward, then yeah, I feel that I've truly done what I'm put on earth to do. It wasn't to play rugby league. Yeah, I think that rugby league was just the foundation. I don't know how to answer that question.
No, you have answered it. You've answered it about 50 times during this whole conversation today, because you inspired that young person you spoke about. That's part of your legacy, is inspiring people, motivating them, giving them that opportunity to reach for the stars, to have vision. So you have answered it. I was just hoping that you could just sort of pinpoint it a little bit more sharper, but
yeah, I'm just trying to stay away from me wanting to tell everybody
you're not
how
telling.
I want
No,
to be
remember,
remembered.
it's not about leaving something.
Yeah, and I totally agree with. It's about the impact that you can make on other people.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And so I guess if that's my legacy, then
it is. I think it is. I think, and I've heard this auntie here yarn up about your rugby league career. She's obviously, you've left that legacy with her in her mind, because I've become very impressed with the foundation that you've created and the legacy that will extend from that foundation in terms of mental health, in terms of mentoring and everything else. That's fantastic.
Again, yeah, it's rugby league again, I feel was the foundation for me to be where I'm at. If someone told me when I was younger that I would play for Australia and play State of Origin, play NRL, I probably would have said, yeah, I know. But if someone said to me, you're going to set up and you're going to start talking in front of people, I would have said, no way, there's no chance. Even a couple of years ago, people that know me, I'm shy, I'm quite reserved. But yeah, if I can make a difference in somebody's life and empower them moving forward, then it's all worth it. I'll be in Cherbourg on Friday, and for NAIDOC. I'll be at the ration shed, and we're going to do a men's yarning circle.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about, my sister messaged me yesterday saying that there were a couple of suicide attempts, and so that's prevalent within our Aboriginal communities all over Australia, and so I want to just let these young fellas know that it's okay to not be okay. Where I didn't know that, I thought I had to be the man because I'm Willie Tonga, and so when I stepped out that door, I had to put on this facade and put on this. It was just all for show, to be honest. But yeah, I don't care about that person anymore. I'm not that person who I was. It's about the impact I can make moving forward.
And I think, Willie, thank you. I think one of your strengths is that you've shown to the audience and me your vulnerability, that it's okay to be not okay.
Yeah.
And I love that. And Paula, do you have any closing questions?
Yeah, just in regards to that, one question I'd like to ask you is that, where's your safe space? From all that stuff that's happening around, where's your one safe space?
God. Putting God at the center of everything, and this is only something that I've only done over the last couple of years, has put me in good stead. And of course my family as well. I guess in my NRL career, I drifted away. I was close to my family, and then I moved from Cherbourg as a 17-year-old down to Sydney by myself. And I was so goal-focused and goal-orientated. Like, if I'm not playing for Queensland, if I'm not playing for Australia, then I'm not the man. And then I started, distancing myself from my family, which I regret. And I can't get that time back. All for this stupid goal, playing rep footy. And as I mentioned, it's just a game. But yeah, putting I think God first at the centre of everything, and then being closer to my family now and trying to make up that time. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Willie, in regards to sharing your story and your challenges that you've had and actually where you're moving forward in the future. I think that's your foundation will be a great advocate for our Aboriginal community and Torres Strait Islander community, especially for our young people as well. And with your stories, I think, continue to share them, the good and the bad, because it only makes you as a human being, as a whole person, and that it shows the example and that the strength that you have and the resilience that you have as well in coming through that.
I have to ask this. We have the State of Origin tomorrow night. You're a Wiradjuri man, New South Wales born,
Yep.
but you live in Cherbourg,
Yep.
which is with Mob.
Mm.
So which side do you go for?
Oh, Queensland.
So you heard it
I'm,
here, everyone, tomorrow.
Look, I'm a proud Koori, but I bleed maroon. And the rules back then, why I played for Queensland was where you played your first senior game.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I played for Cherbourg when I was 15,
Yeah.
for the men's team when I was 15. So I was eligible for Queensland because of that.
Thank you. Are you happy to take questions from the audience?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we have any questions over there? No. Yes.
I'll just bring the mic up separately.